Brian T. City Ortega, your two losses to Volkanovski and Holloway, nobody could be mad. But then you come up against this guy, Yair Rodriguez, El Pantera, unheralded. Even though if you watch this dude, his striking, it flashes off the screen, right? You're like, oh my God, how is this dude not more popular? But he's not, AJ. So is this one of those situations where Brian Ortega, he's trying to have the career resurgence, he's trying to turn everything around, get back, climb up the ladder to get back to championship contention, but then you have this dude, Yair Rodriguez, who he's been in this top five for how many years, bro? He's had stints of inactivity, but as soon as he came back against Holloway, even in a losing effort, he won, man. He got momentum out the roof. Now, with a win against Ortega, he could literally be the next title challenger. What do you make of this fight, brother? Who has more to lose here, I guess is the question that I'm asking.
I think it has to be T-City that has more to lose right here, man. If I was Yair Rodriguez or I was his marketing person, I tell him, man, you got to lean into that heel kind of play style, that heel form, because I feel like a lot of people think he's the bad guy. And if they already have that opinion of you in the fight game, might as well run with it because that's what gets you those views. Unfortunately, that's the real, that's the case of the situation that's at hand. And I feel like El Pantera is just not really catching on, not really growing from it, even though people see his fight style. You're right, man. He gained a lot of fans from that Max Holloway fight. But even then, Ortega, he's been in the limelight for a while. He had the Ultimate Fighter, the whole fights with like Alexander Volkanovski, almost being the champ. Still has all this like not animosity, but like growth in his mind that he still, needs a little bit of work to going forward. So I think all of that pressure that he has built up and still thinking about those past fights just hold a little bit of weight in his head where Rodriguez, man, he's just focused. He's going. He's like, this is me. This is my time. Like you said, I had a little bit of layoff, I had a little bit of, I forget if it was injury or if I forget it was USADA. I forget exactly what it was, but he did have a little layoff for, I'd say like 2-3 years, something like that. I don't have it up right away, but either way, man, I think he thinks it's his time and it's a time to shine, man. You got a pay-per-view or not a pay-per-view, excuse me. You have a main event slot right here. This is the one to get it and against a game opponent, if ever. So like I said, somebody who's down for a war, you got two dogs locked in a cage, man. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
So just to clarify, because I remember this very vividly, when Yair Rodriguez, after he beat Jeremy Stephens, right? So there was the first fight and ended in an eye poke. It was a no contest. So then they said, all right, rematch him. He ended up winning a decision against Jeremy Stephens, had Stephens hurt multiple times. It was a real good outing for Yair Rodriguez. So what do? They say, now you're scheduled to fight Zabit Magomedsharipov. And this was the fight that we all wanted to see. And right before the fight took place, unfortunately, Yair Rodriguez fractured his ankle back in 2019. Now, that led to 2 years of inactivity, a fight against Max Holloway that ended up getting rebooked, and then he fought Holloway back in 2021, in September of last year, and he lost that effort. But he was coming back from a fractured ankle. Did that stop him from throwing a trillion kicks in a trillion different varieties? Absolutely not. And that's kind of the name of the game right here. Yair Rodriguez is clearly a more well-versed striker than Brian Ortega, right? He comes from a traditional martial arts background. He can hit you with a plethora of different attacks, but one thing you will notice about Yair Rodriguez is he gets drawn out into a war very easily. He sits down on his punches, and he has a hands-low style where he's throwing everything from wacky angles. This is a good and bad for Brian Ortega. The good is if you're that plotter, if you're sitting down and throwing heat into every single shot, it gives you more time to counter, to react. Here's the other thing you have to take into consideration, AJ. How worried are you that T-City goes T-City mode and says, why are we boxing with these dudes? Let's get back to what won us all of these fights and go back to grappling. Because if you remember correctly, yes, Max Holloway does have a much more improved jiu-jitsu game than a lot of people give him credit for. But Yair Rodriguez got taken down and put in some bad spots, jiu-jitsu-wise, grappling-wise, by Max Holloway. You know what Brian Ortega can do to you, man? This dude, you see how quickly he jumped on that mounted guillotine against Alexander Volkanovski. I'm talking about skill at a different level, a different universe than all of these other guys. So how worried are you about that for your pick?
Huge pause for concern, Derek. It's one of my notes, in fact, because Yair Rodriguez, he's throwing those kicks, and as flashy as those kicks can be, all it takes is one of them just to get caught. Next thing you know, he's running the pipe, you're on your back, and if Max Holloway, like you said, I literally have it on the ground, Max took him down. It is worrisome. It is huge worry right there for the fact that Ortega, he gets you on the ground, you ain't getting up. He put the champ in danger twice. And yes, does Yair have the the dog in him, the callous mind to be able to keep it going, keep pushing through? Yeah, but also at the same point, you can have all that, and T-City has it just locked in a little deeper than you had on Alex. and you go to sleep. You see the lights close and stuff starts fading. So it's a big worry for sure, especially because when you're throwing kicks, especially as many kicks, because Yair Rodriguez just spams front kick, roundhouse, side kick to the knee, front kick. Like he's just spamming kicks left and right. It gives you a lot of opportunity to either be countered, like in the Max Holloway fight, or catch that kick, get a takedown. It's a point of contention for sure. But I'm hoping, man, I'm hoping not, because I think if he can, you said it yourself, Yair Rodriguez, he can get lulled into a fight or like drawn into a fight or a war, excuse me. I don't really think that's the case. I think he comes for the war. Like he's the one initiating the war, and that's what I'm hoping, that he kind of fights the ego a little bit on Brian Ortega and gets him going. Like, no, we're gonna stand up and bang this one out and make it a fan friendly fight. But at the same point, man, Brian Ortega could do the smart thing, get a takedown, start on that position, and it's almost over from there.
Yeah, and so this is my last point of analysis before we actually talk the wagering aspect of this matchup. So if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do because I just watched down all this film, right? When Brian Ortega fought Alexander Volkanovski, the way he was able to set up that mounted guillotine, and I don't want to talk about this too much because this is one occurrence against one fighter, but Volkanovski is one of the hardest dudes to sit there and submit, yet alone knock out any of that stuff, right? So it was one of those situations where I think Volkanovski threw a blind leg kick, Ortega came over the top with the right, knocked Volkanovski on his back due to being off balance, and then he immediately set in the choke. Now, this also reminds me of when Brian Ortega fought Cub Swanson. They're throwing punches, swinging, banging, and he just jumps on that guillotine, and he literally climbs on him like a backpack in front and guillotines him, where dude was tapping with both hands like, oh my God, get off me, please, right? So if Yair Rodriguez gives those opportunities like he did to Max Holloway, where he actually let Max Holloway almost get a standing guillotine on him just because throwing wild punches, keeping his head out, doing all that stuff, I think Brian Ortega, I think people, because of his last couple losses, they're looking at him, they're like, oh, this dude, he's not the same, the hype is gone, kind of the Macy Barber treatment a little bit. So I just say with those given circumstances, Yair Rodriguez, one of his main habits that I've watched is, given all those kicks, he throws a lot of blind kicks, man, a lot of blind leg kicks where he just throws it, nothing set up. You're supposed to jab straight, then kick, right? Muay Thai background, no. He just straight up throw the kick, what are you going to do about it? But then again, he could hit you with the body kick like he did to Jeremy Stevens, had him hurt, man, with that liver kick. Either way, I do think this is going to be a very fun matchup, and now we need to talk about the wagering aspect of it. Clearly, Ortega is a minus 160 favorite, plus 140 comeback for Yair Rodriguez, and I think that's fair, AJ. I think this isn't too blown out the water, like, oh my God, this dude shouldn't be it. Because Yair Rodriguez, even though he's really skilled off of his back, I just think Ortega just has a couple more ways to win. If it's all striking, though, I'm worried, because Rodriguez could take this over easily and run away with it. Now, props, AJ. For Brian Ortega, we got plus 650 for the TKO, plus 300 for the submission, and plus 230 for the decision. That speaks volumes to me, because you're telling me that the likelihood between a submission win and a decision win are almost neck and neck for Ortega. However, for Yair, look at those props, man. His TKO prop and his decision prop, plus 300 TKO, plus 275 for points, plus 2,800 for a submission, because you're not going to submit Brian Ortega. But when you make these props, man, what speaks to you the loudest between both fighters?
Oh, it has to be, for me, submission for Brian Ortega, knockout for Yair Rodriguez, man. And this isn't the classic grappler versus striker matchup we see. This is a very well-rounded fighter who's excellent at grappling versus a very well-rounded fighter who's a little bit more, dexterous and better striking. So, I think that TKO prop for Yair Rodriguez, that's what I'm rocking with, man. And I'm expecting a war here, so that's what I'm hoping for. But Brian Ortega gets better with every fight. What do you think? What's a little more lucrative for both?
I actually agree on both ends right there. However, I do think that given the nature of these fighters, right, Ortega's only been stopped once in his career, and that was a stoppage. That wasn't, you got knocked out, and that was against Holloway, right? For Yair, he's been finished twice in his career. And one of them came by Frankie Edgar. That was a doctor stoppage right there. And then the other one I don't have written down in front of me. But either way, it's going to be hard to finish either one of these guys, which is why I can also see these decisions coming into play. But AJ, we've learned from experience recently, because we're trying to get a leg back up on the props. You can't always just bank on decision. You know what I mean? That's not realistic, right? So what I'm trying to look up right now is the 5-fight experience between both of these fighters. You know what I mean? Like Brian Ortega, yeah, he's had a couple of 5-rounders recently. Yair Rodriguez, he had that 5-rounder against Holloway. But if I'm looking at Yair, we have 2, 3. Yeah, so he's gone 3 times. Yair Rodriguez has gone the distance 5 rounds 3 times. For T-City, we're looking at 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. All right, 5-round experience for both of these guys. Decision play could be in order, but do you bank on, this is the final question before we move on to the next fight, do you bank on those finishing props, or do you think the safest play is just to rock the money line?
I mean, the safest play is always just to rock the money line. But I think with these two, you have to go with the prop bet. Something's going to happen, you know? I guess we could always be wrong, and there might be a decision. We might just see something like that. But I think the prop bet, those KOs, those submissions, with the way these fighters fight, man, it's all or nothing. And I think that's the way I like to rock it on this one. But, you know, the money line is always the safest bet, especially at a plus 140 for me or a minus 160 for you. You know, what do you think? Is it a little, you going the safe route, or you betting on a prop right here?
I'm betting on the Brian Ortega submission prop right there, if I'm being completely honest with you, my man. And then the last thing that I need to pull up right here, and I apologize because I'm kind of doing it on the fly because I thought I already had it in there, is the over and unders on these fights. So let me just pull that up and then we'll be good. So let me ask you just one question before I get that knocked out, man. If Yair Rodriguez wins in stunning fashion, is he a lock to get a title shot against Alexander Volkanovski, the next title shot? Like, is he a lock? Versus if Brian Ortega gets a nasty finish, is he a lock? Who would be a lock with a big win in this fight?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot more Brian Ortega's the lock. Like, it seems like they're setting up that rematch. They're trying to get Volkanovski enticed. You know, they're trying to entice him a little bit. Like, yo, dog, you almost lost to this guy. You know, don't run away to 155. You don't take your ball and run away from the court. You know, come here. There's still some dudes who are down to scrap. As much as I want to say it's also a lock for Yair, it's not really, in my opinion. I feel like he needs one, maybe even 2 more star-studded performances to kind of really get that going.
Yeah.
But then you think about it, who else is in the division that's there to fight? They want to keep Volkanovski busy. It kind of leads to both of them have to. You know, this seems like a number 1 contenders match for sure.
You know what's funny, man? I think Yair Rodriguez. Sorry, I keep like slurring the man's name. Too many R's. I think that he could get the Lauren Murphy treatment, because if you look at who Lauren Murphy had to fight Valentina, you're like, hold on, you fought who? And you got a title fight? All right, I'll just leave that where it's at. Over and under, brother. 4.5 rounds. You going over and under?
Woo, 4.5.
Yeah.
They think this one's going to decision, huh? I'm going under. I'm taking the KO. I'm going under. Yeah. I don't even think. I think round 2, round 3 doesn't even matter because it's 4.5. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm going under too, and I think the only reason why it is 4.5 is because both of these dudes are incredibly durable. So I think that's the reason, the odds makers. But to give you a little bit of a promise on the under pick, it's minus 135 for the under. So I will just put that for what it is worth. That is your main event, folks. I'm rocking with Brian Ortega via submission. AJ, Yair Rodriguez via TKO. Either way, it should be a star-studded matchup right there. Now let's move on.